other board members?
Yep, David Westmoreland.
All right.
I believe he did confirm, correct, Katie?
He did, yeah.
Okay, we'll just wait.
And Kelly, or
She's unavailable tonight.
and Lisa said she was unavailable.
Correct.
Okay, it's now being live streamed and recorded.
Guess we need David to have a
David,
quorum.
yeah. Yeah.
I'll text him real quick.
All right, where is he?
I just texted him. Here he is. Hey, David.
Hi, David.
Hi, sorry I'm a little late.
Hey, David, how are you?
Good.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New Year
No.
to you too.
Now that we have a quorum, I will call the meeting to order. Present commissioners are myself, Mary Peniston, and David Westmoreland. There's no public participation. No one's out there waiting to be in this, right?
That is
We just
correct.
say welcome,
We'll
Mary.
go to administration, and it's to approve the minutes of November 9th, 2021, regular meeting. Anyone move to approve those?
So moved.
David? Okay, seconded. Anyone have any changes? No adjustments, thoughts? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Mary, you abstaining?
Yes, I have to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, so the minutes pass. Then we'll go to item B, the financials, the audit. And we have a motion to approve the Norwalk Housing Corporation audited financial statements for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021 to be presented by the auditor, Michael Walke. Mike?
Well, good evening to you all. Again, Happy New Year. And it's always been a pleasure to be involved with the Redevelopment Agency and being able to report, at least from our perspective, it's always been pretty much good news. So I don't think there's anything you need to be concerned about even tonight for anything that I'm about to say. But as far as Norwalk's audit is concerned, I think you all know this is not a governmental agency. It is a 501c3 nonprofit tax exempt organization where a Form 990 actually gets filed for Norwalk, unlike the Redevelopment Agency, which is a governmental entity. So our independent auditors report, if you've got the statements in front of you and the PDF, it's the third page of the PDF. It's our standard auditor's report, what we would call a clean opinion. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in anything that we looked at or any testing we did. I think I know it's obviously obvious to everybody concerned with the agencies that there was not really that much activity in 2021 or 2020 for that matter. If you look at the statement of activities on, again, page 5 of the PDF, pretty similar. So there wasn't really a lot of activity this year. Obviously, we have to still do the audit. And on the statement of financial position, one page back on page 4, I think it's just a matter of the difference of the total assets and liabilities and net assets is just timing of the kind of withdrawal, if you will, of cash and to fund some of the payments that need to be made. You'll see accounts receivable, receivables are up, and the investments are down. Investments being mostly money markets and cash. So really not a lot of activity to opine on, if you will. The rest of the statements and the footnotes are pretty standard, typical of what's been there in the past. The only ones I would just kind of point out, if you would like to, if anybody wants to read them in detail, the last page, which are footnotes 5, 6, and 7, talks about new accounting standards that are out there waiting to be adopted, liquidity, and then subsequent events relating to the COVID. We have similar language in NRA's financial statements. I think it's fair to say in most financial statements you would be reading still in this year, there is disclosure on COVID and its uncertainty still. I think it's, I think a year ago we sat there saying, gee, I wonder if we're going to need that footnote next year. Well, it's still there. And it's just, I think, a sign that there is still uncertainty for any third party reading the statement to just understand that. So there's really nothing significant I need to report to the board on. There is not a formal management letter where we have comments that I felt would rise to that level. So again, like I said at the outset, pretty much good news on that end. So, and the Form 990 has already been filed, and there is no filing requirement like there would be for NRA when we talk about that statement. There is no requirement for Norwalk to be uploaded to the Connecticut OPM website or sent to any state agency. So it's just for your distribution.
Is that because of the size of the statement and because there's no single audits required?
Excellent point. Yes. The requirement to send a copy to Connecticut OPM is based on the Connecticut single audit, which is if you expend more than $300,000 in state funds. So it's not applicable here. Nor is there enough revenue over a $500,000 where you would have to send it to the charitable. It's Department of Consumer Protection for the charitable registration thing. So I don't believe you do that, right, Eugenia? I don't think there's any. I don't remember in the past if you've had more than 500,000 of revenue. We'd have to go back in time.
Well, there was with CHAFA. We received, was it 600,000 a few years back?
Okay. But the rule, just not to bore you with the details, the rule in the state of Connecticut is if you get more than $50,000 of contributions from non-government sources like donors, and you go over 500,000 of revenue, then you have to send a copy of the audit to the state.
I see.
I don't recall the last time that might have been applicable.
No, I don't either.
Never. For not, okay. That's it. Those are my comments.
That's it.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thoughts, comments? None. Then I'll call for a vote to approve it. We did have a motion, didn't we? Yeah. All in favor of approving the audited financial statement? Unanimous. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And now and there's no business, new business or old business. So I think I'll call for an adjournment. If everyone's in favor, adjourn, we'll go on to the other meeting. Okay, this the Norwalk Housing Corporation meeting is adjourned, and We'll now turn to the regular meeting of the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency. I guess I have to call this meeting to order as well. A roll call. Mary Pennison, David Westmoreland, myself, and officially welcome aboard, Mary. And with that, there's no public participation here either, is there? Anyone out there waiting? Nope. So then I'll go to item number 4, administration, to approve the minutes of the November 9th, 2021 regular meeting financials. I'm sorry, regular meeting. Do I have a motion? Okay. Seconded, all in favor? Or any comments? None? Two yays and 1 abstention. We'll turn to the financials and the audit. The first item is to approve the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency audited financial statements for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021, to be presented by the auditor. Michael, you're on again.
Thank you very much. And as you all can see, there's more than that. Excuse me. Get my voice back. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. You can see there's more than 9 pages here, so we might have to talk a little bit more on this side here. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And I want to say at the outset of this, just so everybody knows that, getting an audit done in even the current environment we're in these days, where there's a lot of oversight going on, not only of you folks, but our profession. And as you know, the federal single audit applies here, which we'll get to in a second. But I don't want you to think that it's taken for granted, especially by us, that it's very key to have an organization where the auditor can work with the staff, the executive director, and get this done in a timely manner. So I do want to publicly thank Brian, Eugenia, and the rest of the staff. I know there's several that would be thanked for their participation too in the audit. And it's the type of situation which is not in a perfect world. We would love if this was the case, but we get to come in, we do the audit, we can do all the testing. We don't propose any adjusting journal entries. I mean, the financial information you're seeing on an ongoing basis is what we're saying. And it's really nice to be able to do an audit where that is the situation. So again, I want to thank them all. It's still, a bunch of weeks that go by to get all this done and get the confirmations back and attorneys' letters. And I want to thank Brian. He's very diligent in reading the footnotes and making sure things are accurate. Not sure that all clients do that all the time. So, we get a marked up draft. I don't know, maybe you guys know some of this, maybe you don't, but we get a marked up draft from staff on every page that they've looked at and make sure the numbers are accurate and right. So I do really appreciate all that. So it's kind of a collective team effort to get this done. So thank you all. And so as far as the redevelopment agency is concerned, I just want to mention quickly a little protocol item. I think you're probably aware of this. Technically, the audit was uploaded to Connecticut OPM's website on December 31st, which was the technical due date. Brian and Eugenie and I had talked about this. There really isn't a requirement for the board to formally approve an audit before it makes that journey to Connecticut OPM. In the event that there were changes even coming out of this meeting, a revised report would get uploaded to their website. I respect the fact, and we have other clients that just don't feel, if it can be avoided, to not have to file an extension and to extend the report after that date once it's done. And sometimes it's just a matter of getting a quorum or having the board actually meet, not because there's going to be wholesale changes to it. So So that's already been done, just so you know. That doesn't mean, again, if there were changes that had to be made, that we couldn't just send a revised copy to them. If the statement had been distributed to other third parties and then changes had to get made, you'd probably have to recall those from those parties. But I don't think, has that been done? Brian?
No, I haven't done it yet.
No.
No.
Yeah. So that's a moot point. I'm gonna have probably some of the same comments I had for Norwalk here. Page 3 and 4 of the PDF is our independent auditors report. It is longer because the federal single audit does apply. And just to refresh everybody's memory, since more than 750,000 of federal funds, that's the CDBG block grant, are spent, a federal single audit is conducted in accordance with the regular audit. And what that really means is we have to do more testing and we have to test the program. And this year was actually a lot more, I think, because of COVID. There were more funds that came in. It was, I think, almost $1.8 million when we get to that schedule. And again, another area that I want the board to understand, it's somewhat complex. Here, maybe not as much as some other organizations, since there is only really one program, but we test almost all of the distributions and the payments out of that fund. It's very much a paper chase. We have to look at all the applications that we're testing and make sure information is there. We know there's a committee that kind of is involved in approving these things, but it still has to all be there. And again, I usually, and I maybe at this point, I'm going to point to what's probably the most important document in this whole statement. Talk about it first. And that's really the last one. It's on page, I'll go to the PDF. It's on page 30, the last page. It's probably the most important document I feel that a board would want to know. This is the schedule of findings and question costs on the federal program. If we had any findings or we could not get satisfied as to any of the expenditures in that program for what we were testing, we do a sample, so we're not testing 100%, but we're probably testing more here than we might do in other cases because it's somewhat of a limited population. But you'll look at the last two areas, section 2 and 3 on that schedule. There are no findings or question costs. It's only a couple of sentences, but it's pretty important. So I just always like to point to that first because it is very important. And, I think the last statistic I read at the $750,000 mark, the federal government has well over 90% of federal dollars spent in this country audited. There's been some discussion in the last number of years that maybe it's time to raise it. What used to be 500, then it went to 750. Maybe it's time to raise it to $1 million. So that instead of 95% coverage, maybe only be 90 or something like that. But for the moment, it's still 750. Eugenia knows this, and Brian, I don't know if you guys are aware, this report and an additional form called the data collection form gets submitted to the Inspector General's office. Do they look at every one of these? Probably not. They have the right to. I would say those in the lower echelon, don't forget, there's organizations with multi-million-dollar federal grants that are reporting to the IG's office. But fact remains, it gets uploaded to that site and it's there for them to review. And so it's pretty important, this whole area. So I I went to the end because this is the order of the reports, but I just wanted you all to be aware of that this is probably one of the more important things in the entire audit. So, and that's why the audit report on page 3 and 4, especially page 4, has all those extra paragraphs. It's all to do with the federal single audit. And again, like in Norwalk, what I mentioned, there were no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses in the system. I'll get to my kind of editorial comments as you will as the auditor at the end, but as the audit report is concerned, this will be our clean audit report. Pages 1 through, I'm looking at the actual page numbers now, 1 through 6 Management's discussion and analysis. Again, a very important point in government auditing standards. We, as the auditor, are supposed to be independent of this process, and I can tell you we are. Brian and Eugenia and staff have written these 6 pages, and this kind of tells your story. It's not really the auditor's responsibility to do this, and I'll tell you, out in the real world, sometimes becomes a little murky who's actually preparing this. But this is really coming from you guys, and it's again an important point that we're looking at it. We make sure the information in there is correct as a part of the statements, but it's management's discussion analysis. And it's, again, if you read through it, it's kind of going over the highlights and telling what's happened during the year. The statements themselves start on page 7 and then go through page 11, I guess, is where the footnotes start. The only major thing I really do want to point out, and I know you guys are aware of all this, but from a major change from last year, which kind of, when you look at it from this standpoint, I think it kind of will explain the major changes. The grant income, I'm going to get to the page now. So we had federal grants, as I mentioned before, went from about $1 million in 2020 to 1.8 this year. That is the CDBG grant money, including in 21, some additional COVID funds. That's why that number is a lot higher. So that's almost explaining half of the increase, or a good part of the increase in total revenues. Because it went up, I guess, when I look at it, about $1.5 million. So that's almost 800,000. And the rest, I kind of did a little homework before I got on the call tonight. And I said, well, why were other government grants, the first line on the revenue, why did it go from 4 million last year down to about 2 million this year? The major change was in 2020 was the Choice Neighborhoods funding of about $1 million. And then there were other grants that explained the other drop. And I guess just from a timing standpoint, I believe, but so that really is the major change in revenue and then related project expenditures for this year. As you see, the agency does kind of operationally run on a break-even kind of analysis, if you will. And that's what you see in 2021. So I think everything else is pretty much the same. When you look at wages and salaries overall and benefits, it's, I think, the typical increase we would expect from, a wage increase and inflation and that kind of thing. So I don't think there was anything else really in the statements themselves that jumped out on us. Again, we do our testing. We have to, in a governmental audit, which is what NRA is all about, we have to test the control system. We have to test the compliance of the federal grant. So there's a lot of testing that goes on here that wouldn't go on, let's say, in a Norwalk setting even. I know there wasn't a lot of activity there. But if you guys are involved in any other 501c3 nonprofits in your own right, more testing than goes on when there's a federal single audit and a governmental audit like this. The footnotes, again, start on page 11. I'm looking again at the page number and going through page 19. Pretty standard, no major pronouncements that come out that really changed this dramatically from 2020. You'll still see it goes on, I guess, let me see where the first page on footnote number 11, which goes over all the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's pronouncements. Many of these will have no effect on you. It's kind of best practices approach of disclosing all of these in the footnotes. And then again, the subsequent events footnote for COVID-19. The one difference you will see this year, if you recall last year, there was a fairly lengthy footnote on the commitments and contingencies with the lawsuits. Brian was very diligent in redrafting the footnote. Those have been resolved under the requirements for disclosure there was no other requirement to talk about any of that. So footnote number 10 is a pretty standard one at this point. And then starting on page 20 through page 30, which I've already talked about. Again, I'm looking at the PDF numbers. I apologize. It's on page number 19 through page number 26. These are the additional reports that are required. There is one schedule that's in there on page 22, which is just a schedule. But the rest of the reports and pages you see from 19 to the end are because of the federal single audit. And just, I'll boil it down very quickly. If there was any of these, the significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in any of this, you'd be seeing that in these reports. So that's all good news. The page right before the findings and question costs that I talked about is where you see the reporting of the federal awards expenditures. That's the $1.8 million. Then there's some, you guys are kind of a there's subrecipients that you're technically need to report at the bottom of that page. But from our standpoint, all good news. Again, there's no Form 990 that governments file. So there's no tax return that goes along with NRA. It's the audit, the single audit, the reporting to the Connecticut OPM, which we said has been done. And Eugenia, I believe we were all set on the data collection form, right? You got?
No, I haven't done that yet.
No, you haven't done it. I'm
I
thinking of
have,
another client. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
The other day. Yes.
I wanted to get everything approved tonight and then
Yes.
I'm going to do it.
But you have until technically the end of the month.
Exactly. So by the end of the week, I hope to do it.
Right. It's
I
a
will
pretty
do.
basic form. Just so everybody knows, it's a pretty basic form. It's really taking the information on pages 25 and 26,
Mm-hmm.
putting them on this form for the federal government. It's really what it is.
Okay.
So as a newbie, may I ask two
Yeah.
questions?
Yes, Mary.
I was just curious why on the financial statements, you don't show 2 years. I'm used to seeing on most audits, seeing 2 years of financial activity. Is that not a practice for redevelopment?
No, it's the standard formatting for governmental entities
Okay,
to show 1 year.
okay. And then my second question was, would you mind repeating of the 1.8 of the CBDG, you said there was a bump up? You said there was 2 parts to it. Could you just explain could you just say what the amount that has been received, plus there was some additional, was it ARPA monies?
I probably will defer to Brian and Eugenia on that. As far as the 1.8, what was the additional, let's say, from what you would have expected normally?
Yeah, we received a bunch of resources through the CDBG program for coronavirus response.
Right.
So CDBG CV was the designation. So that was new this year.
So I was just curious how much that was.
It was about
I
800.
would say it's got to be at least 700.
It was about 800.
About 800.
Oh,
800, yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, yeah, the last year's, if you went to page 4 of the audit report, the management's discussion analysis, under revenues, the federal grants, I believe, is all of what we're talking about. So it's like a little bit over $1 million last year, which is, I think, what typically it is. But I don't think you guys got really, maybe it was like, did you get like 100 to 200,000 maybe of COVID monies last year in 2020? I seem to recall maybe the standard CDBG was like 800 to 900.
Yeah,
Somewhere,
it fluctuates a little bit year over year. But
yeah. But it's fair to say, I think the 700 to 800 of that was probably this additional monies Brian's mentioning.
Thanks.
The only other
Any
thing
other questions?
before I forget, just again, this is, I don't think it's necessary. I'll leave it to the board chair if they want staff to leave the conversation at this point. Sometimes the auditors and board will have a dialogue as to, is there really anything I need to know or you want to tell me or I tell you? I think you've heard me say it. There's nothing really of substance to report on. But the only thing I would just say from an internal control standpoint, to just keep in focus and I would say this to every board every year, but at least the clients that we're pretty much involved in, the nonprofit world and the governmental entity world, are fairly consistent from the staffing standpoint. I can't think of anybody that has 10 to 15 people in the accounting staff. It's generally 3 to 5, if you will, if not less. And the question of segregation of duties is always something that boards should just keep in mind. There's not a lot of people that do all the accounting for most organizations of this size or smaller, even some larger, especially with technology the way it is, doing things remotely now. And just kind of keep that in mind that, to the best of your abilities, and to the best of the internal control system, make sure one person isn't doing all of the duties. You can split up, if somebody who's doing the disbursements or the deposits doesn't have check writing ability, and the person who has that isn't making doing all those transactions or opening up all the mail, or to the best of your ability, if you can make sure that, again, there's not control resting in just one person or just a couple. That doesn't mean you have to go out and hire a lot of people to fill that gap. But as you know, I'm doing the external audit. Sometimes boards themselves, if there's not a formal audit committee, sometimes it's just the finance committee that is given the charge to do this. Maybe not a bad idea to be an extra pair of eyes and ears. Doesn't have to be done every month. Maybe it's every quarter. Maybe you could just look at some of the reports, look at the payroll reports, look at the disbursements records and the bank statements, and scan through them, ask questions, kick the tires. None of that's required. And I think the whole thing of a best practices approach. I've been on boards myself and been asked to form the audit committee since I'm the CPA. And we've done those kinds of things. And it's just, sometimes it gives you more insight into the organization. And again, not that you're trying to look over everybody's shoulder, but it's just maybe more assurance. So just something to think about. And again, I say this to every board that I meet with. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, did we make, who's the secretary? Did we make an official motion to approve this? I don't think so. No.
No, I don't think you have.
May I have a motion to approve the financial statements for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021?
So
we'll make a
moved.
motion. David, I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Michael. Job well done. Appreciate it.
Again, I want to thank you all. Really, I've always enjoyed the opportunity to serve. And please stay healthy and safe out there. Good luck the rest of the year. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
Right.
Mike.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Before we go on to the next item, is everyone else buffering a lot tonight, or is it just my computer?
Yeah, mine's a little strange too.
I have a pretty stable connection. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, because every now and then
Yeah, just now.
Just
Oh, you
now.
just
happened.
froze, John.
conversation keeps.
Queued it up.
Give it up. All right, I'll put the heat on. Moving to item number 2, statement of revenues and expenditures for operating fund 100 for year to date. We're going to approve the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency statement of revenues and expenditures for operating fund 100 for year to date. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Let's see, David makes the motion. I'll second it. Okay, turn it over to you, Eugenia.
Okay. For the year-to-date period ending November 30th, the operating fund 100 had actual revenues of $543,000 versus budgeted revenues of $592,000, which resulted in an unfavorable variance of $49,000. This is mainly due to lower CDBG grant revenue, which will be recouped over the remainder of the year. Total actual expenditures of $543,000 versus a budget of $591,000 resulted in a favorable variance of $47,000, which is due to favorable variances in personnel costs of $30,000 and in administrative costs of $17,000. The net actual operating deficit of $1,000 versus the budgeted operating surplus of $1,000 resulted in an unfavorable variance of $2,000. And that's it.
Okay, any questions? Any comments? Seeing them, we have a motion. Do I see show of hands who approve the redevelopment statement of revenues? Unanimous? Thank you. Mary, just to bring you up to date to our procedures. The lawyers have told me I cannot make a motion. I need either you or David tonight to make the motion. It has to be seconded, and then the minutes will be legal. Correct.
Being my first meeting, I didn't want to be cheeky and make a motion. So
No, it would be appreciated, but I'm not allowed to from the lawyer's standpoint.
thank you for the clarification.
And we appreciate having you on board. We now have a complete commission, which is good. And we are going to the business today. A lot of the business is a review just to help you along in understanding what we're doing. So I will turn to item A. The Urban Core Landscaping and Maintenance Service is to approve the extension of the contract with Meticulous Landscaping through June 30th, 2022. Brian.
Great. Yeah, so some of you may recall this contract that is primarily for landscaping services throughout the urban core. So a lot of sort of the overall maintenance and various planters doing, plantings for Christmas time, holiday decorations all throughout Wall West and also South Norwalk. As you'll recall, the last time we considered this was another 6-month extension, and it was for another extension for to provide time for the city to take it over. The city has since taken over the expenses attributable to this project through Just Vonashek's office. What they need as they're going through their procurement is just another 6-month extension to allow for them to complete their procurement for new services and a new vendor. So before you is just approval of our contract, since the contract sits with us, but it will be paid for out of the city's capital budget, and at the tune of $44,000 to get us through June 30th.
So, Brian, is the city, I guess they have to go out to bid for this?
Exactly. Yeah. We've been working with Just to scope it and sort of working closely together, but the city is going through a formal procurement and it's just finalizing that, and it'll be going out soon.
Okay. Well, I would just say, I think Meticulous has done a really amazing job at a really good price for us for years. And I'm thankful for their service that they've provided. So, and I would certainly support an extension.
And I'm sorry, Brian, could you clarify, did you say then that this contract will no longer be managed by redevelopment? It'll be directly with the city?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is the contract sits with us. So we do need to approve the extension so they could operate off of that.
Okay.
No? Seeing none? I'll call for the vote on the approval of the extension of the contract with Meticulous. All in favor?
John, I don't think you actually asked for a motion to approve. And if you did, I missed who made that motion.
So moved.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so the motion's been approved and we've voted prematurely. Item B, agency work program update. I'll turn it over to Brian.
Come off
Your
mute
video,
here. All right.
I was really going crazy. First of all, everyone's freezing every now and then. Now I
No, you're good. I'm just trying to, my agenda
couldn't hear a
decided.
voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. So yeah, so just to, want to provide a general agency work program update. Obviously, this is not all inclusive. It's a much larger work program that we're working on, but given that it's Mary's first meeting, I kind of wanted to cue you into some of the most immediate projects that we have going on. For a full sort of overview, and I'd sent you some onboarding materials, Mary, that includes our strategic plan, and we try to follow that pretty closely. So
Did you send me that by email or by paper? Because I didn't get anything.
it was by email, and that sort of introductory email we had, it was a link. So you have to be downloading that, but we could actually have a hard copy mailed to you if you prefer.
I'd
We have
prefer the plan be sent to me because that's a little long to read on. Anything that's like more than, if it's substantive and more than 10 pages, I'd appreciate a hard copy. I don't mind reading a board packet online, but if it's substantive, I'd rather have a hard copy.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Katie, would you mind sending a strategic plan to Mary?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Mary, I'll reach out to you tomorrow for a correct mailing address.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. When you do receive that, and we'll resend the link that has a full sort of onboarding. I know we wanted to provide you some financials, just some catch-up materials. I know it's quite a bit, but we're happy to provide anything in paper or whatever you like. Just let us know.
Okay.
Chapters 4 and 5 really detail our full agency work program in the strategic plan. But I'll provide just sort of a general update tonight, some of the good things we have going on and that we're actively involved with. As the first item you have here is the residential rehabilitation program. So one of our key work areas is providing facade funds for facade improvements, funds for historic preservation. We run the the residential facade improvement program, the MLK facade improvement program, and also the historic preservation program, which we've been actively rehabbing homes, giving loans, giving grants to homeowners to do that work. We're fortunate in the fact that the city has been working diligently, and there's a tremendous value in that program, given its sort of reinvestment potential in the community through the MLK corridor initiative and also ARPA and some of the GGP money that has come. And then the city has structured and has been approved through MLK a $1.25 million package for residential rehabs that's going to be administered through our office. So we're going to have quite a bit of resources coming down the pike for residential rehabs. A portion of that will be for loans and a portion of that will be for grants. The portion being what's estimated currently is about $600,000 for loans and about $750,000 for grants. We do have some target areas that have been discussed with the various groups that are tasked with sort of development of guidelines for this. Obviously, we have our current projects that we solicited. We have basically we have 13 more in the pipeline. And what we want to do is also put out a solicitation in the next go around for multifamily rehab for some of those larger projects we haven't been able to fund given the limited funding that's available. And then, utilize this new set of resources for those programs, and then also moving back to the smaller, single family residential projects. So I'll go, I guess, line by line if anyone has any questions on that or comments.
It's great.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. When we first went back out with the rehab program, we really tried to market it a little more heavily than has been done in the past, and it worked. So success was a bit of a challenge because we didn't have the full amount of resources, but this is really going to help us make it dent. So we're looking forward to getting that moving over the next year. So if there's no other questions on that, I could kind of go on to the next couple items. There's sort of just general updates. I know we talked a little bit about the work we're doing with Webster Street lot. We had put out a request for qualifications to identify a sort of set of qualified or a qualified developer for that site, trying to find a partner to work through some of the constraints that are just inherent to the overall opportunity. We received those back. We're in the process of vetting them. We had another a solicitation to interested firms for additional information. We've since received that back, and we've scheduled interviews, which are going to start next week. So I'll have a more substantive update as we move that forward, but that's sort of where we're at with all that. And it's really tied up with our work at the South Norwalk train station. So I know we've been catching up on that a bit, and there's for your reference, there's the second public meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 via Zoom. So if you haven't received the materials on that already, we try to blast it out to as many people as possible. We can make sure you get those. or if you'd like us to send it to anyone in particular, we can make sure, we do that tomorrow. But the study has been progressing well. We're sort of, I would say 70% there. What we did over the summer and the fall here is we really repositioned it after our first public meeting. There was a lot of comments that received from, local area residents. When I mean local, very, just adjacent to the train station, that we really wanted to make sure we didn't miss an opportunity to work with. So as a result, we created this community advisory committee, primarily some people, involved with District B, also general, area residents. And we've had 3 separate public outreach discussions in between our first public meeting, our large scale open to everyone meeting, and then this group to hopefully prepare us and have some really solid recommendations at tomorrow's meeting. And we're really looking forward to kind of getting everyone's feedback and trying to find that balance between, it being a very important local and regional asset, but also obviously whatever goes on there will impact people that live in the immediate area. So trying to find that balance has sort of been the theme of that overall effort.
Brian, is there a time frame you have in mind to sort of finish this study, and what is that?
Yeah, well, of course, obviously wanting to be responsive to whatever feedback we receive tomorrow, but based on what I'm sort of feeling out, I would actually project we're going to be finishing this in the probably March timeframe. Okay.
Which is fine. As I say it, like every one of these meetings on this topic, there's got to be a phase 2 to this study, particularly if the decision is made, if a solution or a location is purchased that would then make the Columbus School available in the next 5 to 10 years. Because again, to me, with this little area we're looking at, that's a game changer for the area in terms of the opportunity that both the historic building and the green, most importantly, the green space behind the building would provide to the neighborhood. And I just don't want, I think it would make sense to take advantage of the mechanisms and the groups that we've put together already for this part of the project to help steer the city in a direction that we think is best for the community for that to go to. And I think it also adds to what we can accomplish right around the train station directly. So I'm just going to keep saying it till I wear everyone down, and it's a given. So you don't need to respond.
Yeah.
So.
And I think I could just generally respond. I mean, obviously, with all these plans, we're looking at a snapshot in time in terms of what's immediately available. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that these sort of contextual things are included for sure, and make sure that they're not kind of drifting figures in the wind. So we'll have to settle what we could settle now, and obviously we can't keep the consultants on in perpetuity, but we'll definitely make sure that that's part of it. So
right.
Will there be a recording of the public meeting tomorrow at 6:30?
Yep, we'll record it and it'll be available on our YouTube, as with all our meetings.
Sorry, I won't be there. I have a budget meeting for the city district. So we finish that and we can go on to the loan review. Next item is to approve residential rehabilitation loan for 4 Gwendolyn Street. Owner Hillary Pollard, and authorize Executive Director Brian Bedoli to execute contracts for value not to exceed $31,000. Do I see a motion to approve? I second it. We've made the motion, so now we can open it to discussion. Brian?
Yeah, so what you have before you tonight, you can look at the sort of base level scope is an application to our residential rehab loan program for an owner down on Gwendolyn Street. Basically what it is, they were having some issues with their bathroom leaking and such, and just wanted to sort of do a full scale rehab of that. It fits within the parameters and guidelines of our program. And what the amount we're estimating between $15,000 to $20,000, but being that there are a number of unknowns, terms of once that bathroom's gutted and whatever could occur, we basically just put before you an authorization to approve them at what they've been the fullest potential of their underwriting capability. So we will work with them to refine the scope and get this project done. It's a pretty straightforward project, but obviously needing your approval.
Okay, any questions?
I apologize because I didn't see any information about that in the packet. Did it come afterwards?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, there was we added that into the agenda. What date, Katie, did you send that out?
I think it was on Friday. I sent a revised agenda for Norwalk Redevelopment Agency.
Okay, I may have missed that then. I apologize because
Yep,
I
I
didn't
have it.
read this one. Okay.
If you like, Mary, I can pull it up if you have any specific questions on the items, but basically what it is just there's 2 bathrooms in this homeowner's home. And it's the typical things that you would expect, repairing the sheetrock, taking out the tile and redoing some structural things and some plumbing.
Out of curiosity, does the owner go out and get the bids of the contract, speak to the contractors, or do you bring them in?
Yeah, we actually work with them to do the scoping and then we bid it out.
You bid it out, okay.
Yeah, there's
And
a lot
what
of federal guidelines that are required to follow, so we have to make sure we maintain that oversight.
Is the main qualification income-based?
Correct. And also debt to income ratio, and it's for low to moderate income households.
And I noted in the package that this property owner had borrowed $10,000 for an emergency roof repair almost immediately after buying the house and has paid that off. So this is someone who's known to us and has a track record and seems to meet all the criteria. So.
That is correct.
And this is a loan, not a grant, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Show of hands. Okay, unanimous, Katie. And we made the motion. That takes us to the end of business.
Thank you.
We could go into new business. I don't know if there's anything you want to discuss, old business. How is COVID treating redevelopment?
We had our first little wave and through over the holidays and through January. So we did a brief
Okay.
period of working
Everybody's
remote, yeah.
Okay, feeling well? Everyone's working remote? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we're playing it safe. There was a few people and we just wanted to make sure.
Good. Eugenia, you going to need me to sign any checks this week?
Yes, maybe I'll contact you on Thursday and let you know, ask you what your plans are, if you could do it by the end of the week.
Looking ahead, Thursday would be better than Friday.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Every other week, Mary, I go and sign the checks and check all the vouchers and everything else. Stack about this big. And then inevitably, Eugenia finds one I missed. Anything else to be brought up? No? Let's see. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Oh, everybody. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you all. Stay well.
You too. Take
Sure,
care.
thank
Good
you.
night.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.